The first line in an HTML file should tell the browser which standard it should use to interpret the content. This is referred to as the doc type. The value HTML refers to the latest standard, commonly known as HTML5. The basic building block of HTML is called an element. An element typically has an opening tag and a matching closing tag with some content in between. The tag used determines the general function and initial appearance of the element. There are too many tags to cover in this course, but here are some of the more common ones. The root element of an HTML page is created using the HTML tag. Inside this, we then include a head and body element using the same approach. The head element is used to add any metadata, provide a title for the page, and to load in external assets. It should not include any elements that we want to be visible on the page. That's what the body is for, and is where we add everything we need to create the page layout. We'll also include certain external assets via the body. To build a simple user interface, we'll start by adding a div element, which creates a division in the page and provides a mechanism for grouping content together. Inside this, we'll add a header using an h1 element, putting the text we want to see on the page between the tags. The content between any opening and closing tag is known as the inner HTML, and can be either text or HTML, and as simple or complex as necessary. We want users to be able to provide their own values for the price and delivery, which means we need a mechanism for capturing data. In HTML, this can be achieved with an input element, which, unlike the elements we've created so far, doesn't have a closing tag. This is because an input doesn't support inner HTML, and is what's known as a void element. To control the appearance of an input, we can provide additional information to the opening tag by using attributes. Attributes are supported on all tags and provide an opportunity to change the appearance of an element, provide an ID, or store data. In the case of an input element, we can provide a type attribute, specifying one of the many types in order to help us capture the desired data. For now, we're going to use text to create a simple text box, and we'll add a second attribute to provide some placeholder text. We can add a button element, which we'll use later to execute some JavaScript. And finally, we'll provide some basic instructions to the user with an HTML list. We have the choice of either an ordered list with numbered items or an unordered list with bullet points, using either the OL or UL tags respectively. To add items to the list, we need to use the LI tag. To include JavaScript in an HTML page, we have two options, both of which require the use of the script element. We can include JavaScript directly in the HTML page by adding the code between the opening and closing tags, like this. While this may be functional, it isn't necessarily practical. As an alternative, we can store the code in a separate file and simply load it into the HTML page by adding an src or source attribute and adding the path to the file. This can be either a relative or absolute path. We're going to store our JavaScript file in the same directory as the HTML, so we'll load it like this. A script element can technically be added at any point in the HTML markup. However, as a best practice, we recommend that you either add them just before the closing body tag or in the head and include the defer attribute. We'll cover this in more detail in a separate video. Before we get our HTML and JavaScript talking to each other, it's time for some activities. You can stay up to date with all of our content by subscribing to our YouTube channel or following us on social media. If you'd like a more interactive learning experience, then head over to websy.academy, where you'll find our full set of training courses complete with hands-on activities and much more.